Hey everybody, on the live stream. We're back. We're a few minutes late, but we were taking care of a couple little quick things.
We're only 4 minutes late.
Only 4. Well, you know, we had a long drive back from Ohio. So,
right.
And as always, got a little bit of housekeeping here to do real quick. We're going to share the stream as soon as it comes up here on the live feed. And there it is. Just give us a second here. So, Dan, you wore out after the shoot?
I am.
Right?
I am wore out.
Had a long weekend. Fun weekend, though. We're going to be talking about that in the second half of the show. So, let us do some quick sharing here. There's one. And, come on. It's not working for me right now. My fingers are even tired.
Right.
So, hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Let's see. Got a couple people joining in. So,
there you go.
They'll be filtering in here pretty quick. And I got one more, Dan, and I'll be ready to go.
One more in just a second here. Let me go over here.
All right.
Let me type this in.
You let me know when you're ready, Dan.
I will.
We will get rocking. Hey, Michael Ryder, thanks for joining in tonight. Hopefully everything's going good with you and the family. It's one of the guys from our deer camp. And I gotta get this. There we go.
All right, I think we're good.
You ready? We'll slide in a little bit. You're hiding over there behind the screen. We've moved the camera around a little bit. We got some new decor here that we want to show off a little bit tonight in the show. So,
of course we do.
You know, we're
all right,
moving things around, so to speak.
Absolutely.
You about ready over there?
Almost. Just making sure my volume's down.
All right.
All right. Nope.
You are ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. One more thing here, and we will get moving along.
You're up and ready there?
Yep.
Go.
All right. Let's get this thing ready to go tonight. Okay. He says, hey, which one of you split the arrow? We're going to talk about that, Michael. He wants to know who split the arrow.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that here in the second half of the show. So you're going to have to stay tuned. All right, here we go. Stand by. And in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. Host Mike Adams sitting in the cabin tonight. Wore out with Dan DeFaw, who I think is a little wore out as well.
Yeah. 2 days of shooting.
You okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
What did we shoot? 172 arrows a day, right?
Yeah, 144 plus practice,
arrows,
so probably well over 150, 160 arrows. Yeah.
While treading up and down
hills and dale and everywhere else. So, But it was a good time. And
it was. You know, I was shooting with Dan, meeting a whole bunch of new people.
That was cool.
It was good. It was well received. They were all nice down there and want us to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are you ready to just get into the thick of it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, you know, we got pictures from this weekend, but this one's actually going to kind of set things up for us here. It's a picture of Danny and I down at Adams Conservation Club.
Adams Conservation
I had to
Club.
think real quick, but it's in Toledo, Ohio. It's where we shot. But as you can see in the picture, we got our cups here of Hunter's Blend coffee, which we got right here on the set.
Absolutely.
And, you know, without further ado, we might as well just go ahead and introduce.
Bring our guest on?
Yeah. We're going to introduce Mike Schwartzentruber from Hunter's Blend Coffee. Mike, are you with us?
Yes, sir. And you need to say that 5 times really fast.
Schwartzentruber.
Very good.
That's not going to happen right now.
I'm so tired I can't say my own name. I'm glad that I got it right.
Right.
But you're part of Hunter's Blend, and you've helped us out here with coffee, and we wanted to get you on and talk a little bit about your business and talk a little about hunting and everything else. So you know, welcome to the show, Mike.
Well, yeah, appreciate it, guys, and thanks a lot for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. It's glad to have you on. Now, you're down in Ohio, but you're a little further south than where we were this weekend. Am I right?
Yeah, so Toledo, we're probably about 2 hours south of that.
Okay.
We're shops in Mechanicsburg, about halfway between Dayton and Springfield.
Okay, all right. So just a hop, skip, and jump down the road.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So Hunter's Blend Coffee. Talk about how this got started.
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from? I mean, how did you guys come up with the idea to get into coffee, or is this something you guys have always been into? And as we talk, I'm going to put up, I got a picture of you, Paul, and Ken, who the other two are the guys that you work with there at Hunter's Blend. Talk, a little bit about that dynamic between you three and how this thing all started.
Sure. Well, yeah, you know what? It's one of those routes you couldn't necessarily plot out, but it's how life kind of comes at you, and you've got a decision to make or an opportunity, and you take a path, and then that brings up another opportunity, and you end up at a place. Well, you know what? That's how life is, good or bad. You can end up in a place you didn't intend to, or you end up in a good place that you were trying to get, but you couldn't map that out ahead of time. I feel that's a little bit like this was Paul. Well, so if we back up, I guess, my brother-in-law, Ken, he married one of my sisters, Twyla, when I was around 13, and he took me under his wing, took me trapping to the, just introduced me to the outdoors. I grew up on a farm. Okay. And I loved, country and outside, and, so that's some of my best memories, walking to the house, on a, 0-degree winter night from doing the chores, and it's just brilliant stars, and mowing hay out in the summer, feeling the breeze and the sun, and
absolutely,
and just a lot of really good memories of that. But nobody in my family hunted, and Ken took me under his wing and taught me trapping, and we just had some really good times. I remember going down to there. They lived up the road from us in a trailer, and he had a really nice 8-point hanging on the wall, and I just would look at that thing. He also got I forget what it was. It was nice, really big moose. Well, big enough he couldn't hang it up in the trailer. So, stuff like that really impacted me. And then Paul married another sister of mine, Grace, about a year or two later, and he was from Northwest PA and kind of grew up in that Pennsylvania deer camp tradition. And so I was surrounded by hunting all my life. But in high school, about the time I started thinking to get into deer hunting, I just kind of got caught up in high school and running around with friends and just having fun and whatever,
chasing girls, and playing football.
Well, there could have been some of that. So it just kind of took priority, I guess, and I kind of got away. But I've always been intrigued and really stayed in touch with hunting, and either kind of vicariously through family and whatnot. About 15 years ago, a little over 15 years ago, Paul was part of a missions organization, and part of what they did was work with churches in Central America and other places in financial support. And he kind of got to seeing that this is kind of like a never-ending cycle here. They do have need, but we're just continuing to help financially. And he said to the guys once down there in Central America, he said, I just paid $13 for a bag of Starbucks coffee, and here you guys are knee deep in this stuff. I mean, and they just kind of laughed at him, and they said, there's no money in this for us. I mean, it's sad that some years they literally told him, this was a good year. I've got I don't have any money, but I've got all my bills paid. I got my people paid, and he broke even. Wow. And and it is obviously not like that every year, because if it was, you couldn't, you can't lose money year after year. But that is what happens when the market's down. They're making, they're selling their product for less than what their cost of producing it is, and so they'll borrow. They can be 3, 4, and 5 years behind on, because of several bad years in a row. Right. And so they explained to him that the whole coffee industry, the way it works, is there's 4 or 5 whatever middlemen before it comes to an importer in the U.S. And each one tries to kind of maintain a little bit of separation from the next, and so you're just kind of beholden to the next guy up the chain. And some of these smaller farmers out in the, out back, they're very limited. They're kind of dependent on the guy that rolls around once a year or whatever it is and says, hey, I'll give you this much for your coffee. And it's not really as much in their mindset or even logistically possible to take the coffee out and, kind of do your own marketing. So it was quite a long process, but Paul ultimately ended up becoming an importer, and the farmers had to get set up as exporters. And that whole process is just full of pitfalls, because a lot of times that relationship will go south pretty quick. You're buying coffee from a guy and he'll send you a sample. Oh, it looks good. And then he'll send you a bunch of, seconds, or vice versa. The buyer may not. It's just not a good relationship. It has to be based on a lot of trust. And so he was able to establish really close personal relationships with these guys. That's really the only way this model works, I think, where it's based on a mutual trust and mutual openness, and believing that each person has, the other's best in mind. And so that's 15 years ago, started doing the importing, and now doing 4 or 5, 6 shipping containers a year. And I remember when he started, I was like, you're just going to start this thing out of midair. I couldn't grasp how this thing's going to work. And it's just been amazing to see it grow out of that. And the cool thing, I guess we're talking about coffee, I can bring this up. The amazing thing is what has happened to the locals as the impact of this business model. It's not socialism. It's not a handout. It's not feel good if I give you a couple extra pennies and now I can sleep good at night. It's just doing good business, and by cutting out 5 or 6 middlemen, that leaves a lot of money now that can be paid to the farmer.
Sure.
And the farmer then also has a responsibility in being selective about his process of sorting beans and picking them. And, it's a lot easier just to go through once or twice a season and just pick everything from kind of green to overripe. And then, because it's a lot more labor to go through multiple times to pick the good berries.
Right.
So those things cost money, but that's why select coffee costs more. It's just like everything else. Something mass produced and without a lot of quality in mind is going to be cheaper, but so is the taste. So I think it's over 100 processes that you can identify that the farmer goes through, from the planting the plants to, nurturing them along to pruning, and, the whole, there's just a lot that's involved. But if the money's there for the farmer, they want to do it. They can do it. And so that's the coffee that goes into the Hunter's blend is grown it's about 3/4 Nicaraguan and 1/4 Thai coffee, and that's the blend. Okay. And where the whole Hunter's blend thing came out was Paul had the idea of it was a little bit like starting this coffee company out of just thin air. It's like, what? Why not market coffee to the hunting community? Well, that brought up another really interesting component of coffee. So the retailer, that's who we all see, whether it's Starbucks or, that whole kind of bent, or you might have a company that's more Second Amendment friendly, outdoor friendly, or whatever. Right. And that's awesome. Every company that's friendly to the outdoors and hunting and Second Amendment is a big plus.
Oh, we just lost the call.
I hate when that happens.
We hate when that happens. Dial back up, Danny, real quick, and see if we can get him here. We'll put a little pause on the record here.
Give him a second here.
Yeah. Gotta love technology.
Absolutely.
Actually, we tried getting a hold of him a little while earlier, and we were going to do the video Skype, but he was having problems on his end, so... Danny's not quick with the fingers here.
I'm making sure I'm calling the right number.
Right. You don't want to...
all right.
Yeah, you don't want to get somebody going, hello.
Right.
It's ringing.
It's a good sign.
Yeah. Gotta love technology.
Right.
I apparently was talking into thin air.
You were.
Yes. We lost you there somewhere along the way, but we got you back on here. And hey, that's technology. That's the way things roll, you know. We just got to deal with it. So, but
well, we're out here where the signal isn't at the strongest, shall we say?
okay,
So,
all right. Well, if it happens, we'll do it
hopefully
again.
We're good to go. Yeah. So where did I lose you?
Well, you're talking about the the company is not being maybe hunter or Second Amendment friendly, but talking about how those things work with the coffee industry and what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it is. So the retailers that we see, it's like the part of the iceberg above the waterline. They could be hunter friendly or not. And then there's a whole part we don't see, which is the importers, and not known for their strong support, shall we say, of Second Amendment and hunting. And that's where we come in. So by direct importing from the farmers, now both sides of the equation are hunter friendly, and then giving back to I shouldn't say giving back, but giving to the hunting organizations and conservation and stuff like that. So not only not working against hunting, but trying to donate towards that.
Right.
So, with the motto defending hunting one cup at a time, it's one cup's just one cup, but we all drink a lot of coffee, and it adds up after a while.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
I love coffee.
Oh my! Well, I'm drinking my I don't know what we call it. One guy called it the all-day sit shake, but I mix coffee and a few other concoctions together, and it's a pretty. There's not a time of day that's a bad time to drink coffee, I think.
Right. That's kind of the way I feel. We have it here at night during the show, obviously, but there's times I drink it, not right before I go to bed, but, an hour or two before I
I got to watch how much I drink on the show because I got to.
You get up early.
Yeah, I got to get up early tomorrow.
So we do limit Danny to 1 cup.
1 cup
out of the show.
The first time keep him in the chair.
Right.
Well, that and the first time I had it, I left left here and I went home and I was laying in bed looking at the ceiling and I couldn't figure out why for the longest time. Then I realized why. I had a little too much coffee.
Well, I tell you what, we'll put the picture back up here. I guess we've shown this, but I need to introduce which one of these 3 fellows we're talking to. As you're looking at the photo right now in the live stream, Mike is on the left, Paul is in the middle, and Ken, who is your brother-in-law, is on the right. So that way the guys can identify you there and see who's who. So, but you talked a little bit about getting into the hunting part of it, at a younger age, and then getting back to it. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But before we go to break, we put the website up. But is there any other place besides your website that somebody could buy your coffee? Is it available anywhere else yet, or is it just a direct ship from you 3?
The majority of it is direct ship, but we are setting up. That's why we're at the ATA this year, working with independent local hunting and archery shops just to retail it out of their store, because that's what makes the most sense is for guys to be able to, or that makes a lot of sense for guys to be able to buy it locally at their hunting shop. And our hope is that the local hunting store realizes that, hey, maybe Bob comes in here and buys coffee instead of his wife, buying what's on sale this week at the grocery store. He says, hey, honey, we're out of coffee. I better go stop in at the store and buy some. And, maybe he'll pick up something else there when he's there in the off season.
Right.
And then it's the whole thing. We're all working together towards a common cause anyways.
Right.
So, but yeah, we're on all the social media platforms at Hunters Blend. And then, but yeah, huntersblendcoffee.com is the website. You can just go right there and buy it online.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we go ahead and take our first break? We'll step outside real quick, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit. You sent me some photos and things of what the 3 of you have accomplished in hunting, and some of I really like the photos you sent us on your food plot, because you do things a little bit differently. And we'll talk about that here when we come back. So we're going to step outside, and we'll be right back after this. Okay, we're going to save this section off, guys. Just hang with us real tight for a second. If you guys on the live stream have got any questions, Denny Steiner has one. He says, do you offer decaf?
Yeah, we do. I need to double check and make sure that that's in the store right now.
Okay.
On the online store, I'll check real quick, but I believe it is.
Okay.
But yes, we do offer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ron Moses, who is one of our dedicated watchers here on the live stream
From Missouri.
he says, I assume we were talking about the Second Amendment and the other hunting organizations of contributing to them.
Mm-hmm.
He says, well, with that said, I'll give it a go. So he's going to give that a try there. So we got a couple guys that are
awesome.
Give it a go
Appreciate
here.
that.
So. All right, let me save this off here, and we'll.
You know what? I'm seeing here we don't have it on the online store, so they can just email. They can just email through the website, and we can
We'll
ship
get
it
out.
I
We'll
thought
get
it
out
was
to
on
them.
the store. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go, Denny. Just email them directly, and they'll take care
Directly
of you.
off the website, and when we come back on here, we'll put that website back up again so you can get it
Right.
real quick. So saving this one off here.
And then there's a couple of quick things I forgot to mention. Well, not forgot, but just didn't get to on the coffee side. I started talking about it, but then I went on to the next point. But just about kind of the impact that specific impacts to the local communities.
Mm-hmm.
If it would be okay, I wouldn't mind. I'd like to talk about that just for a little bit.
Sure.
No,
yeah,
we'll
we can
get,
do that.
Get that right out of the gate.
Yep.
We're flexible.
That's what I like about the live stream. We get some interaction back and forth, and sometimes the guys will bring some stuff up, and all of a sudden we're known to chase a rabbit or two along the way. So.
Hey, whatever. Yeah.
It's all
you guys
good.
are the captain, so we'll follow where you go.
Well, we kind of let the audience, sometimes they'll ask something, and it's something that's,
Oh yeah.
worth chasing, and we'll chase
That's
it.
even that's even better yet. Yeah.
Right.
That's what's connecting with people.
So.
Sure.
Right on. Okay, here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody. Second segment of the show. We are talking with Mike Schwartzentruber. And did I say that fast enough to get all that out this time, Mike?
Yeah, you get extra credit for that.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
sure.
right. And he is from Hunter's Blend Coffee. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the coffee, because we've been drinking it on the show here for the last month or two, or 3 actually, I think now. And we wanted to get him on because he's a hunter, number one. But in the break, Mike, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about the local community. And going along those lines, what did you have for us?
Well, and this is the part where I feel, I guess, a little bit like Moses at the burning bush, take off my shoes, this is holy ground, because I really don't feel, I guess, qualified to talk about it, but it is an impact that is astounding to me, and I get chills sometimes when I hear some of the stories, and I don't want to take credit from the standpoint of, hey, look at what we're doing. I just think it's amazing that in trying to do good business, what can happen on the other side. So in Nicaragua, Diego, the family farmer, and there's a documentary on our website that's really interesting. He had moved his family to Canada and felt led that he needed to go back to the family farm. So after living, I don't know how many years, in North America, moved back down to Nicaragua to take over the family coffee farm. And was on the verge of losing it, and I think there was an original debt of a couple $100,000, but with interest it was like $600,000, and just
Wow.
crazy stuff, and was able to find a bank and to to do the financing, and then he lost that. He was going to have the farm foreclosed on by the second bank, and then guys stepping forward. Up here in the U.S., he was up here on a visit, and some businessmen came together and said, "We want to buy your farm, and we're going to, loan you the money at a low interest rate." And he can, just really miraculous stuff, to just be real frank about it, and that's really cool. But what he's been able to do down there locally to impact the community is he can now hire people year round rather than making them seasonal workers. He can provide work for them year round. And he has, among his workers, there'll be a guy that, was a pastor or something, but that couldn't afford to do that. So he has to go to work and pick coffee. So in time, and it's been working out to about 3 a year, he's been able to pull a guy aside and say, listen, I know you're a pastor. I want you to go, and I'm going to, sponsor you for a year to kind of help get you started. And he's up to like 30-some pastors now that he's helped, to move on from picking coffee to what they feel their real calling is. And he's always looking for ways to, what can he do with his extra income? I mean, his generosity to me, it's like, it makes me feel, like I said, a little hesitant to talk about it because it's nothing that I'm doing or that we're doing, but we just get to be a part of it by doing business. Then over in Thailand, one of the visits, early on when Paul made the first visit, the village was noticeably, I guess, quiet and not doing well or whatever. And after he had come back, after they'd been, buying coffee for a while, he discovered that, the village looked totally different. Well, the Pat, the guy we buy from, was kind of apologetic when he showed him all the women that were doing the sorting of the beans. And he's like, well, there's about 80 women there. He said, well, about, 75% of them had been previously away in Bangkok, being exploited in some form of the sex trade.
Right.
And for him, he felt a little shameful, to talk about that, to say that.
Right.
And, that just knocks the wind out of you to realize now they're home with their families. The village is doing well, and they have a legitimate job with dignity. From a cup of coffee. And so I just feel very humbled to even talk about it, but it is a cool thing that happens, the backstory of before the coffee ever gets here. So I just think it's awesome to be able to be a part of that. But the nice thing is it's not, necessarily a social program. It's just doing business, and there's good things that happen over there. So,
it's a good sign for you to see what you're doing up here, and actually seeing things being done over those two places. Yeah. In positive notes. In this case, you're seeing a whole village change, where you're seeing basically one kingpin just get richer.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And the fact is that Hunter's Blend Coffee right here that we're drinking, like he says, one cup at a time, is making an impact not only in the outdoors but in other people's lives in other countries.
Exactly.
So, what a great story. I mean, that's just that is really cool that you can look back and see that you had a vision of taking coffee and making a go of it and what it's doing now, not only for the outdoors but for other people as well.
Yeah, that's. I think that was Paul's vision from the beginning. I don't know if he realized the impact that it could have. When he brought up the Hunter's Blend concept, that's when Ken and I came on board. Kind of spinning off a separate company with that, and it's just it's humbling to see the things that are happening, and it's cool to be a part of that.
And that's got to be awesome to know the three of you guys put your heads together to form this with purpose of helping other people. And then actually, from what he was saying about that, the gentleman actually sponsoring more people. So just passing on the generosity and the benefit of what's going on. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where I feel, talking about someone else's generosity it's pretty humbling, but it is, it's really awesome to see.
Well, shifting gears just a little bit, I mean, this all came about because of hunters, and actually all three of you are hunters, and you talked a little bit about that. But, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the things that you guys have chased along the way. And, you sent me some pictures here, and I'm going to go ahead and put up Paul's buck. I've got this photo here. tremendous buck here. I mean, shifting gears just a little bit. That thing is enormous. Have you got a quick story about where that came from?
Yeah, that's a crazy story. There's a podcast here in Ohio called the Hunt Fish Journal, and Jerry Everhart's kind of the brain behind it. He's in his 70s, and he's taken field notes every day he's been in the woods since he started hunting, which was back in the 1970s. And he was that was his job. His day job was a government. He did measuring, and so data and all that's firsthand for him. So kind of came up with a lot of processes, and one of the processes is setting up a kind of an extensive scrape system around the stand, and there's a whole procedure to that. But Paul, he went out in archery, and he had just gotten bit. Didn't know it at the time. He just had his leg swollen up and was causing pain. He couldn't even sit. He propped his leg up, he couldn't have ever shot from that position, but it was just, the pain was getting to him like crazy. He had to crawl down. Wasn't really able to hunt during archery. But in that process, he had gone to the doctor, and the doctor's like, man, you've got to, he gave him all kind of penicillin and stuff. Went to the drugstore in town for something. And I mean, it was getting really bad. Legs swelling up and scabbed and nasty looking. And a kid, I don't think he was a teenager, looked down, he said, that's a brown recluse spider bite. And, this kid in the drugstore knows exactly what it was, and the doctor still didn't know. He said, just stay here. He went home and got some poultice that they had bought, and the doctor had told him he was going to have to have a procedure done where they just scraped all the scabs off. He said, you don't want to know what that's like. Right. Go home and try to get rid of it. Anyways, over the weekend, pretty much, most of that crud started coming off from this poultice, and it totally reversed. I don't know what would have happened. I mean, he would have had a big gouge in his leg. I mean, it was pretty serious, basically. But it kind of took him out of the hunting season. And through a process, the deer busted out of there twice. He saw this buck twice, and both, after the first time of it busting out of there, he figured the thing is not. He knew it was a super mature deer. And, you see a buck like that once and he busts out of there, he's gone. You're not going to see him again. And he saw him a second time, ultimately went back during rifle season. He can tell the story a lot better. He knows all the details. But, yeah, went back during rifle season and shot him right at last light, the same buck. And he's convinced, and I think he's right, that the reason the buck was hanging around is because he kept freshening up these scrapes periodically. So kind of the idea is finding two trails that are somewhat parallel, maybe 40 yards apart, and finding a good tree in between the trails, and then going ahead of you about 20 yards and cutting a cross pattern. So you have like a giant H of trails in the woods.
I gotcha.
And you're in the bottom box there, and you got about 20 yards radius all the way around you that you could shoot. And then you go to trees on the far side of the trail and bend down licking branches. And the key that Jerry found was, didn't find much action with 1, 2, 3 scrapes, and keep bumping it up, and started seeing more and more action. So the goal is to have half a dozen or more scrapes all around you. And I've been able to see that develop on camera. That the action that brings in. And anyway, so somebody called it the spider buck, which I thought was a pretty good name for it. And,
sounds like it.
Yeah. So, but it was cool. He had a redeeming chance there in gun season after figuring it was a lost cause. So
that is awesome.
Kind of a buck of a lifetime there. Somewhere in the 170s.
Yeah. The antlers on that thing is just incredible. The long tines, got a crab claw in the front. You can tell that's just a mature whitetail, no doubt about it.
He said when he saw it stand up, he said it's just like a different animal altogether. Like it's there's bucks, and then you get this, and I've heard that. I've just not necessarily seen it, but he said it was just the way he stood. Just this mass kind of stand up. Yeah. Just that's a different animal.
He commanded respect from all the other deer in the woods.
Pretty sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now the next photo I got is of your brother-in-law, Ken. Now, this looks like this could be out west somewhere. You said he's from Iowa?
He is. Was that the? I'm not seeing what's on the screen right now. Is it with the deer or with the elk?
Yeah, it's the deer that he's holding. He looks like he shot it with a bow.
Yeah, that's Iowa. I'm pretty sure. There's some parts of Iowa that are just nice and rolling, and southeast Iowa's kind of like that. I'm pretty sure that's where that was. That's not his best buck. He got one also in the 170s here a few years ago. I think that one he said was 125, but it was just a really mature deer.
Yeah, you can tell it's a nice buck. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Anybody'd be proud to shoot
for
that.
Sure.
And moving on here to his elk. Now that's a beast as well.
Yeah, that's he was really tickled with that. That was his second elk trip. Him and Paul went out on a DIY years ago, and this time he decided to go with an outfitter, and so he was super. I think that was like 260 or something. It was the second elk trip, and being able to take down a bull like that, he was really
excited,
happy with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And obviously he took that with a bow as well, it looks like. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, now we've talked about the other guys. Now let's talk about your deer here. This one, from what you told me before, is special to you because this is the first deer that you've actually killed, correct? With a bow?
Yeah, it's the first buck I got. Yeah. So I hadn't really done active hunting. I mean, here and there, but never deer hunting. And then my son in 6th grade, so it was about 6 years ago, he was taking archery in school and really enjoyed it and was really good at it. Mm-hmm. So I took him over to my neighbor, Troy, who's he's in his, I think he's pushing 60. And, I mean, he's been hunting since he was a teenager to literally put food on his mom's table. And he is a avid, hardcore, disciplined guy. Mm-hmm. And so I knew he'd be a good teacher. And so I kind of got the bug as well and ended up, getting my own bow. And that's when I started hunting. So we have 5 acres in the back, maybe acre or so is huntable or two. There's about 100-yard wide swath of trees along a creek that cuts the corner of our property in the back, and it connects a larger woods in the back, 40 acres and 50 acres, and then maybe, 10 acres on the other side, and then the creek. There's just a travel route along the creek there.
Right.
And so I just had the one stand basically, and Troy told me, now you can't overhunt your stand. Well, that's what I promptly proceeded to do.
Right.
And just kept seeing less and less and less deer, and finally, I think it was early December, I got a little guy. He said, and this was the other advice he gave, is I don't care what you see, the first deer you can shoot, you shoot it.
Right.
Good advice. And it was a fawn. He was born that year. And after I shot it, I immediately knew why he said to do that. I mean, it was real. Yeah, it was very good advice.
Yep, absolutely.
Then the second year, I think that's when I got that buck. Yeah, it was the second year. So I was starting to do this scrape system that I was telling you about. And part of his system is, obviously there's 2 schools of thought. I mean, more and more people are under the impression or belief that the rut is caused by daylight versus moon phase primarily, and that's opinions either way, I guess, is fine. But he's got a track record, Jerry, going back to him, he's got a track record pretty hard to deal with. I mean, he's in his 70s. He shoots a traditional bow with fingers, and he's got, I think, 13 out of the last 15 years, like a Pope and Young caliber buck.
Right.
So and climbing the stand literally like 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, he's doing something right, and I figure I could probably learn from him. So I was, kind of trying to follow that procedure, and part of his procedure then is you stay out of your key stands, your primary rut stands. You don't go in there until the first day you want to hunt it. And so basically he's come up with an algorithm, a mathematical formula of those daylight, the rate of change of sunlight, which varies by a couple of days. I mean, we all know, most of us know, the second week in November in this part of the country is going to be pretty hot.
Right.
But with his basically algorithm figuring out more precisely, rather than that week, what's the maybe 3 days where it's going to be peak. And so he used to do it by hand. It'd take him about a half an hour to do the calculation, and now he's got an algorithm. It's just computerized. So I was waiting, long story to say, I was waiting for that key day. And, and just a couple days before, my dad he was in his 80s. He was traveling, him and my stepmom, and he had a stroke, basically, and got put in the hospital. This was out in Maryland. And so I ended up going out there and with a couple of my sisters, and we were there it was about a week till he passed away, and he was never responsive. But, it's one of those things I'll never regret that I did that.
Right.
And it was during that week, So anyways, came back, and I forget what, kind of got busy again doing, work and stuff. I had to get caught up. But a few weeks later, my daughter was looking out her back window one morning. She said, "There's a deer out there." And I looked, and I'm like, well, I think he's got horns, So I got the binoculars and looked, and sure enough, it was like a little 8-pointer or whatever. And then I realized his one leg was broken, and that's why he was just feeding there in broad daylight. Okay. And I figured, I guess I don't know if he was close enough to the house he wasn't close, but I mean, he could have been other places, but he was right there. There's some, I guess there was some greened up stuff there, now that I think about it, looking back. So I think it was an area that I had cut or something earlier, and so it had a little bit fresher leftover stuff growing there or something. And so after watching him for a while, I was like, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's not moving off. So I quick went and took a shower, and if you want to view this thing kind of like a baseball diamond with the house being home plate, my stand would have been out in, let's call it, left field. Well, this deer was just on the other side of the creek, kind of just, around second base or something. And so I had my son take me out on the four-wheeler, and because I figured he wouldn't be scared, and he wasn't. He just laid down, and he took me around back to kind of where my stand was, and then dropped me off. And then I had him go out to, let's call it, right field, like down the right field fence, if you want to look at it like that, and just putter around for a little while on the four-wheeler, so that it attract attention up there. So I got up in my stand, and I couldn't see this thing, and I was about to give up. And that's when I learned something else that day. All of a sudden, I saw a little flash of white, and here he was laying down and just, licking his leg and his antler moving. He was there in broad. I mean, he was right there, like, I don't know, 30, 40 yards away, but I couldn't see him.
The whole time.
He was just, he was just laying there and realizing how easy it is to look past a deer if they want to hold still or whatever.
Blend right in.
So, totally. So I crawled down and was able to get over to the creek and kind of essentially stalk up through the creek, let's say. The bank was high enough I could keep my head under it. And I got within probably 10 yards, and once he put his head down to eat or whatever, looking the other way, I was able to stand up. And it's good it was 10 yards because I was shaking so bad.
Right.
That pin's moving all over the place. So, and he took off like he wasn't injured, and I just knew I missed him. I mean, the guy looked healthy as a horse. So another learning experience, I crawled up out of the creek to, stand on the bank then, and I look over, and he saw me just then, and he busted off again, and I should have, again, just backed out right away, but I just thought I had missed him.
Right.
So at that point, I did go to the house, and here was cool because my family was up there watching the whole thing.
That's
so
cool.
that, I had no idea. So it was kind of a neat family thing. Anyways, I went out half hour later and found the arrow stuck in a tree, and it was covered with blood, but I couldn't find hardly any blood trail. So I finally gave up and just went to where I saw him last. And there he was piled up on the other side of some bushes. he just didn't go far. Fortunately, it was a really good shot. Fortunately, can't take credit for it, but fortunately, it went to a good spot. And he didn't go far. But I think with me being, almost a level shot, there's no chance for the blood to,
right.
leak out yet. I mean, it was all in the cavity or whatever.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. I mean, actually, our whole family was one way or another kind of involved in it. And it was, after my dad passed away and spending the week there with him. And so there's just a lot of memories around. So I did a European mount out of it and got it on my wall, and that's a picture of my son and I there with it. So
that's a great story.
Yeah, it's just a good, and it's a nice little basket, So
that's a great way to kick it off, man. Put the first buck down like that. Yeah.
Right.
I'll take it, absolutely.
No,
yeah,
that is cool.
For sure.
Well, I tell you what. Why don't we step outside? We've got a few more minutes here, and we'll take our next break. When we come back, I kind of want to show the food plot system you got set up there. The pictures you sent me, because the way you just described this hunt, that's where you shot this buck at, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
kind of between the two. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we'll kind of go through that, because it's such a small piece of property, but it just goes to show you that the property doesn't have to be huge to provide deer to be able to put venison in the freezer. So
that's right.
All right. Okay,
absolutely.
We'll step outside. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the story. We'll be right back after this. All right. We'll save this one off. And if anybody's got any questions, hey, Matt Howard, down from Ohio, a gentleman that put on a great tournament, and we're going to talk about that here soon as well, here towards the end of the show. Dan Yassa, the man, the myth, the legend that we were shooting with this weekend.
We were shooting with him.
Tim Cias is on, Wayne Sitton. Hey, thanks, guys, for joining in tonight. And we're talking with Mike from Hunter's Blend Coffee, talking about their coffee, talking about his hunting, and Paul and Ken, his partners, talking about some of the animals that they've been able to take and the great work that they've been doing. So if you guys got any questions, let us know. We'll pass them along. Alrighty. And Dan, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's kick off the next segment of the show. Here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Third segment of the show. Right before we went to break, we were talking with Mike about the bucket he had shot. But Mike, actually, he had sent me some photos earlier in the week, and he talked about, hunting small. You said you got 5 acres, right?
Right.
Okay, so the first picture we're looking at, right next to the house, it looks like, looking at your backyard, and at the very back, it looks like switchgrass, and then there's a tree line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now this is your backyard, and then it leads to the food plot, which is on the other side of the switchgrass. Am I correct?
That's correct. I have kind of 2 food plots. One is on the side of the creek where the house is, and that's a good half acre. And then across the creek, there's the way the creek runs catty corner through the back corner, so there's about a 60 by 100 plot back there, which opens up into a hayfield. So that's a kind of like a hidey hole. At least it's somewhat protected back in there.
Right. Yeah, there's one picture here I'm looking at. It looks like you're looking uphill, and it looks like you can see where the deer have just tore the vegetation up going up that hill. It looks like that's where they're feeding at.
Yeah, I think I should put a camera out there again. My guess is that could be daytime feeding, like at least early morning or evening.
Okay.
Because I know during the night they go all out through the field.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing that's some kind of daytime feeding where they're just out of the tree line where they can bust back in there anytime.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can totally see where they're keeping that hammered down pretty good. And then my plot on the other side of the creek, I didn't send any picture of that. It looks like it's pitiful soil over there because the crop is just way shorter and thinner.
All right, where they're mowing it down.
Yeah, because they're protected back there. Somebody gave me a good idea. I'm thinking about maybe fencing that off with a hot zone fence next year.
Okay.
To try it.
Yep.
And just keep them. Yeah.
Use a
Keep 'em
fence
out of
like
there.
that. Give the food plot some time to
Time to
grow.
grow, so you got some food right on. You know, and
Well, yeah, then wait till the fall and then open it up whenever I want to hunt it, or in the winter. You know, wait till even whenever, late
Right.
season, and then open it up. Yeah.
right on. You know, and you sent me a couple videos here, and you talked a lot about this tonight, talking about making scrapes and licking branches and things. And so I kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that. I'm showing the doe video right now that you sent me.
Oh, yeah. The 3 does or the doe and fawn?
The 3 does working the licking branch. Yeah, it's so this is the setup that you use. You make a scrape and then you make the scrape underneath the licking branches. I take it.
Yeah, correct. So the big thing is in the spring to try to get the licking branches started up, and then by default, that's where the scrape's going to be in the fall. And last year, I actually had the most success. I used to use deer urine, like doe and heat, whatever's left over from the previous winter, to put it on the branch to kind of get it started in the spring, and I think that works. But last year, well, and there's a cumulative effect too. The more years in succession that you do it, it has a snowball effect too of attracting, especially bucks. But last year I tried what was it, Smoky's preorbital gland lure, buck lure, and holy cow, those does, well, you see 3 of them on the same branch. Now I only have one picture like that. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't every branch all day, every day, but I've just never seen something like that before. Just, I mean, they were going after them. So at that point, they're on the branches already. You know, they're keeping them active.
Right.
And then in the fall, last year I started probably early September, which was a little early, but I was starting to see some signs around here, anyways, of them activating the scrapes. So the goal is to have at least 6, 6 to 8. So if you're in the bottom box of this H, if you could have 2 or 3 to your left, to your front, and to your right,
gotcha.
That would be ideal. And you want to have your branch pulled from a tree that's on the far side of the trail. You don't want, if you pull a branch down on the near side of the trail, the deer is going to be looking right up at you when they go to the branch.
Gotcha.
So far side of the trail and 360. Well, you can shoot to on your right, 4, 5 o'clock, pretty easy.
Right.
Or no, sorry, I'm thinking backwards, like 3 o'clock, and then to your left side you go, 7 o'clock or something. So basically, wherever you can shoot to and find a tree, that's where you put your licking branches. So starting them up in the spring. Last fall, then I had a buck. It was a pretty nice looking 8-pointer on them scrapes almost every night for about 2 weeks. I mean, just rattling the leaves with his antlers and scraping it out and then coming to the next one or whatever. And I'm pretty sure go ahead.
I was going to say, we're showing the video of the buck. I don't know if it's the same buck you're talking about, but video of him raking right through the branches right now.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, he wasn't a monster or trophy or anything, but due to indecision on the first morning I hunted, I'm pretty sure it was him who came through. And he was 10 minutes behind a doe, and he was just hopped up and looked like he was on caffeine or something. And I was nervous to bleed at him, which retrospect I would have done that. That was a when he came through, I noticed he had a really nice rack, but his body looked pretty sleek yet. And I don't know if that made him 2. I don't know if he was 3. But, I mean, for me, it would have been a good bit bigger than the one I shot before. And it was strange. It was like a voice went through my head when I saw him. This is the kind of deer that if you let him go, you're going to wish you would have shot. And I ended up having him at full draw to, let's say, at, 9 o'clock. And when he would stop, I didn't feel comfortable about the shot distance. And I was also I had my pin at 25. Well, he was down in at 15. And my brain was like, well, what do I do now? I just was. Anyways, then he came over to my right, and I had to actually let down because there's a tree right there. And I came back full draw at 3 o'clock, let's say. And I had again, same kind of voice went through my head. If you don't shoot now, he's going to walk out of here. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome experience, though. I mean, a doe and fawn had come through a couple hours before, stopped and worked over a scrape, both of them, and then they left. And then an hour or so later, another doe and fawn came through, but she was on edge, and so that I got ready, and he came back. He came by, 5 or 10 minutes later. So I would say the system worked pretty well. They just don't tell you when you're supposed to shoot. I guess that's up to you to figure that one out.
Right.
Well, they can't tell you the whole story.
Well,
That's right. That's right.
If if you don't get the shot off and he makes it through the season, he's just going to be that much bigger next season. So
I'm really hoping, and if he does, and if he was the one that's in that video, which I do think it's the same one, then realistically, there's a pretty good chance he's going to show up there again, because in the fall, you use a real good doe and heat urine with buck tarsal gland, and if you get a fresh source, like I don't get anything out of the store, if you can get a fresh source, where that stuff isn't gone, whatever, rancid.
Right.
The goal is, he's like, well, who's this? I don't know who she is, and want to come back and check out or whatever. If you got multiple does in that bottle, like, man, there's something going on over there.
Right.
To get him coming back. So I feel pretty good about if he made it, he would be back through there again this fall.
He's going to come back and remember it and be checking again. So.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate you taking some time out of your Sunday talking with us. But before I let you go, I got your website back up here again, and we've been talking about the coffee, talking about what you guys are doing different, and not only helping hunters get some good coffee, but working with some organizations that are pro Second Amendment. And a hunter, they not anti-hunting. They appreciate what hunters do. And helping them with habitat and this, that, and the other. But you're also helping people in other countries as well, maintain a standard of living as well. And as you say, one cup of coffee at a time. But I got the website up again, so I'll just kind of run through where people can find you at.
Yeah, so the website is huntersblendcoffee.com. You have to put the coffee on there. There's a couple other Hunters Blend products. There's I think a wine and a food plot mix and seed mix or whatever. So you go to huntersblendcoffee.com, and that'll take you to the website to order a product. Or like I said, there's a neat documentary video of Diego. He's the Nicaraguan farmer, and then on the social media platforms, it's just Hunters Blend. Will take you to us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter.
Right on. Well, I tell you what, guys. Get you some of this coffee. We
give it a try. Get out there and try it.
We got it every week on the show, and we simply love it. You know me. I love coffee, but this is the real deal here. So, it says Hunter's Blend, but we want fishermen to try it as well. Am I right, Mike?
I think that's a good idea.
Fish camp, deer camp, turkey camp, it doesn't matter. If you're an outdoorsman, get out there and try it, and get over to their website and get you a bag ordered and get it to your house. So, Mike, thanks again for taking time with us. We're going to step outside and take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk a little about. We've been talking about archery. You shot your first deer. You talked about that and that story. So we're going to talk about our archery tournament that was down in Ohio this weekend. So, Mike, you take care, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it,
Hey,
guys.
no problem. Hey, we're going to step outside. We'll take our next break. We'll be right back after this. And if you guys on the live stream have any questions before we let Mike go, shoot them across real quick to us here if you don't mind.
Right.
So, and Mike, we got to get you back on again if that buck shows back up this season and you happen to take him.
Hey, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely let you know.
And you had mentioned the gentleman again from Ohio. What was his name again? John Everhart? Jerry
Everhart.
Okay, and that's from the
and it's Hunt Fish Journal.
Danny, didn't we meet one of those guys at Cabela's?
We
did some work with him.
And we met him last year at ATA.
At ATA, yeah. I thought, the more you talked about that, Mike, I really said, we know these guys, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yep.
Sure enough.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah.
So, yep, good guys.
Yep, we met him.
Yeah.
We met him up here when Cabela sent him up here to help him open the store here.
I don't think it wasn't Jerry though.
Oh yeah, one of their guys worked at Dan. Worked at Cabela's.
There you go. They sent him up here, and then we got to talking with him up here. And then last year at ATA,
Okay.
we met him there. They were in the press room, and we were talking with him there.
Yeah. Sure.
Good guys, definitely good guys.
Yeah, they are. Well, they're like you. They're just regular, down to earth, guys that hunt and have some information to share. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, man. I tell you, it's it's getting it out there and letting other people know what you do and try to help them out along the way and give them some good products and show them. Hopefully, they have some success at it and it catches with them. That's the key. So.
Well, I think when you say we're all in this together, I think sometimes it's easy for us to get segregated into groups, and we view it as we're competing teams. The traditional guys and the crossbow guys and the compound guys and then the rifle guys and high fence and food plot or fair only public or whatever. But the reality is, that's exactly what the antis need. They need us getting in, shouting matches and shoving matches with each other.
Right.
And, you're not going to win a football game when the linemen or, the quarterback screaming at the linemen and the linemen,
It's
you
true.
play as a team. Yeah. And we let them, they're not the ones dividing and conquering. I mean, we're doing that part to ourselves.
Yeah.
And as long as it's legal, then we need to shut up about what we don't like or agree with. I mean, we can have a good debate and conversation,
Sure.
but
that's
that's
part's
fine.
good.
Different opinions, absolutely. But we, at the end of the day, we're all on the same football team, and we're not going to beat the other team when we're not in it together.
Absolutely.
Right, and Mike's got a saying. We've been talking about this. You take a bunch of hunters and you whether you're crossbow, compound bow,
Rifle shooter, shotgun, whatever.
You put them all in the same room,
Right.
and it takes about 3 minutes, and then they start throwing sand in each other's face and
Wow.
screaming at each other. And
You
it's
say, I'm
like,
going to pick up my toys and I'm going home.
right. It's
So.
like, you guys really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, Mike, thanks again for taking part of your Sunday afternoon out and talking with us, and we'll catch up with you guys again real soon, okay?
Thanks so much. You betcha.
All right,
Hey,
take
talk to you
care.
See
later.
you guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Dan, you ready for the next segment?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Last segment of the show, everybody. Just got done talking with Mike Schwarzentrooper from Hunter's Blend Coffee.
What a good thing.
It
What
is.
a good thing to see. They had an idea. Mm-hmm. They put it together, and it ends up helping not only in one country, not two countries, but in 3 different countries. And
Absolutely.
it's just the trickle-down effect of how, doing it here in the United States trickles into Nicaragua and into Thailand, and then it trickles down in there as well.
You know what? And it trickled into our cups this weekend.
It did, and we needed them because we were up early to head down to Ohio to go shoot with Dan Yassa.
Dan Yassa, we were down at Adams Conservation Club in Toledo shooting a field archery tournament.
FITA.
And this was the second one you have shot.
Yeah, we shot it last year.
Yep.
I shot with you this year. You shot one in the spring.
Yeah.
And we were able to get together under the disguise that we were going to get poured on, but luckily that didn't happen.
Right. Well, we got out on the course. This is the foursome that we were on the course.
Right, exactly.
Our group here.
Yep.
Me and Danny and Dan Yassa and Sophie Howard. Make sure I get the last name right.
Right.
And she's been doing some work with Dan. Dan's been kind of coaching her
Yep.
along. And I tell you what, this girl can shoot.
Yeah, she can.
She shoots a lot better than you or I.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
So, but we had a blast out there on the course.
We did have a blast, and it was the first time that Adams Conservation was hosting this event.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, they were kind of nervous, and it through trials and tribulations of needing to, Dan was helping them as well, and kind of give them some pointers, and they kind of asked us, what did we think,
Right.
as kind of outsiders looking in. So, it was a great weekend.
You know, what I really liked about the course was the elevation changes. There was a creek bottom, and, you know, you were constantly crossing the creek, going up one side and down the other, back and forth, and some other hilly terrain. What a beautiful scenery to be in and out shooting the bows this whole weekend.
You know what? And it was supposed to rain, but it didn't.
Right.
The humidity wasn't that bad.
No, and mosquitoes were non-existent.
Really, you know, we just had a few in the morning today, and then they were gone. But yeah, it turned out not to be too bad of a weekend, and being overcast helped out.
It did, absolutely did. Yeah, you know, you didn't have the sun blazing down on you, or you know, depending on which way you're shooting, maybe blinding you. The wind wasn't bad at all. I mean, it was a great weekend to be outside and be shooting the bows for sure.
Absolutely, you know, and like you said, the elevation changes. You know, the one shot that we got to, our second shot, number 3, was an interesting fact that, yeah, we were shooting uphill, because here's a picture of Dan getting ready to shoot, and you can tell by the way he's angling upwards. And it was funny because everybody that was talked to, this was one of the shots that they always talked about, was this shot right here.
You either loved it or you hated it.
Exactly.
To me, I really liked it. It was a tough shot. I think Dan said it was probably like a 20-degree.
Something like that, yeah. It was a 20-degree incline, and here's the picture of Dan and Sophie shooting it together. We shot in pairs at this one, and you can see the 4 targets up at the top. But yeah, it was just wild. And then when you walked up there, you got your arrows, and this is the angle that they were going into the
right.
target. So you kind of try to figure out what you're shooting uphill.
Right.
So it was a blast.
You know, that, if I remember right, that was 15 meters. And that's the thing too on the FITA course. The first day was unknown distance. You walk up to a target, and you shot from the color stake that you, whatever group or whatever classification you shoot in, and you shoot from a stake, okay, whether it be red, yellow, or blue. And obviously we were shooting from the furthest one. But these 3, you know, all colors were the same at this stake. So I think it was 15 meters. Because the second day, which was today, they give you exact distances to shoot.
And today was longer, a longer course.
Yeah.
Except for this one.
So what did you think about shooting in meters versus yardage?
You know what? Once we talked about this and trying to figure out, okay, 1 yard equals how many meters, and when it says a number or what you think it is a number, do the multiplier in your head, come up and put it to your pins, because we're dealing within yards.
Right.
So, but yeah, you know, in the picture you're showing now with Dan up there, and he it was quite a poke on some of these, up to 65, I think, was the longest one.
60 feet, 65 meters.
Yeah,
or 65 yards.
No, 60
meters.
Meters was the longest one on the back.
Yep.
And that was quite a feat.
Well, you know, we all got it together on one particular target.
Yeah, we did. That was a great target, and I think this was about a 45-yard or something like that.
40-meter shot.
40 meters, yes, meters.
So it wound up being like, what would that be? 44 yards.
Yes.
So
our quick calculation in our head without being totally exact, but as you can see, Dan's arrows were driving in the deepest with his green fletching there. But it was a great time.
You know, and you know, you kind of ended the day here towards the end of the day with quite a little feat. You know,
it was kind of funny because I had not said anything all day, and I swear, just before this happened, I was walking and I was gonna say something, but I didn't, because I didn't want to jinx myself.
Right.
Because I was like, you know what? With all the arrows, because we're each shooting 3 arrows, so 4 of us shooting 12 arrows at the same target for the one face targets. Mm-hmm. Is, you know, you showed in the previous picture, our arrows were being grouped really tight, and I was like, man, nobody's jammed another arrow into somebody else's shaft, and I'm like, wow. So I didn't say nothing. So this was on a 45-meter.
45-meter target.
Yes.
So that would be about 40, let's see, 45, 49.5 yards.
Right.
And doing quick math.
And sure enough, I missed, but then I missed again perfectly.
You missed again perfectly. So you were grouping well.
I was grouping well, and because my 50-yard pin is not set.
It's close.
It's close.
Right.
And well, as you can tell, it was really close to the other arrow, and I grouped them really well. And of course, it was me that did it to my own arrow.
Did you bring it with you?
No, I didn't.
Oh man, I thought you might have it with you here. So, but what did you think about making those conversions and then having to use pin gaps? Pin gapping to hit certain targets.
It wasn't too bad. Once you pin gapped the correct, whether you're shooting 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters, and then you get the right, okay, I'm going to be in between here, a little bit higher because it's on the further end, and you let it fly, and it's fun. It really is. It's not intimidating, but what's amazing is watching Dan shoot.
Absolutely.
And watching Sophie. Because Sophie, she's only 15 years old, and she won her division, and between the two of them, it was just like, yeah, okay. Dan would get up there, especially when he was doing Saturdays, unmarked distances, and he left 16
points
on the board.
Perfect round was 432.
And he shot 416 on Saturday.
And on Sunday.
And then ended up coming back and shooting 416 on Sunday. So he ended up with 832 to win the match.
Yep, win the match. So out of possible 864 points, he scored at 832. I shot a 601. First day I shot 316. And then I shot a 291 second day. And you think, well, you should be shooting better when you know the distances versus not knowing them.
But they lengthened the course, though.
They lengthened the course. It had a lot longer shots.
I think Saturday there wasn't one over
45.
45,
meters.
I think we figured. And today the longest one was 60.
Right.
So they took some and lengthened them out, and so it was like you think you'd be, oh yeah, no problem.
Right. Well, the thing that got me today was the fact that after shooting 72 yesterday and walking, coming home, driving back an hour and a half home, getting some sleep, getting back up, driving back down an hour and a half, and shooting again all day, I started out pretty good. I looked at my scores, and in the first 2 or 3 targets, I was shooting better than I did yesterday. But then it's just like fatigue hit, and for the life of me, I didn't throw a bunch of shots. I didn't shoot any ones, didn't shoot any. I think I shot 1, 2, and that was on the incline. The rest, were a few threes, but mostly a lot of fours, a few fives, a couple sixes. Whereas the day before, I was shooting pretty well, but I just couldn't concentrate. It was a fatigue factor.
The first half seemed to go okay. It's the second half where you're struggling. You're starting to struggle towards the end yesterday. Today it was the same thing, and today was a little bit tougher because you're getting into your 100 and something arrows. You're trying to sling and concentrate.
Right, concentration. Yeah, that broke down. Actually, talking about concentration and mental fatigue, I had 2 arrows that didn't even score.
Right. I lost one arrow.
The first one I shot the wrong target.
Yep.
There was 4 faces, and you got to shoot the right one. And I made a mistake instead of shooting.
I shot the wrong one on that one as well.
Yeah, you and I both messed up on that one. And then on a longer shot, actually, I think it was the second longest shot out there. I put my arrow on, got everything ready, and drew back. I forgot to hit my flipper rest. I forgot to flip it up to contain the arrow.
Yep.
So it was on the shelf when I shot, and it was a mental miscue of just being, I think, tired and just not paying attention.
Well, that's what it was, and you just that I think to me was the toughest part of the second half of today.
Mental.
Yeah, you're getting into that, and you're mental, and you're like, all right, come on. You know, it's like
I was glad to get off the course.
right, like you even said that. Yeah. You know, and Denny Center says his good friend Brian Ferguson says it's only a Robin Hood if it's a bullseye.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, though,
You tubed your arrow then.
you tubed your arrow. I don't care when you do it, but because think about it. And Dan will tell you this is why you use pin knocks. But anyways, but think about it. For that to actually happen, to be that, and on those Carbon Expresses, I even stuck it directly through the collar.
The bulldog knock.
Yeah, and it was like, wow.
Or the bulldog ring, I mean.
So I missed, at least I consistently missed.
Right, right.
I'll gladly take that. But you know what? It was, again, I having Dan out there, and we were poking fun and having fun with each other, which is
Absolutely.
you know, and goes out to Sophie's dad, who's the judge on the field, and talking to him and Gary and all the other guys that were there, and they sat down. We sat down and talked with them, and
Great group of guys.
absolutely, it was a blast. One of the coolest things, though, you're at an archery tournament, you're out there, you're shooting targets, 12 targets, but you're doing it under the disguise because you're at this conservation club where there's also a gun range, skeet and pistol and rifle.
Yep.
And they didn't close that, so you were shooting under gunfire.
You were. It was loud.
It
Didn't bother me, though.
You know what? I have to admit, it didn't bother me.
You know, when you and I first that first morning, we're out on the practice range, and I'm like, who's lighting firecrackers off? And it was
Yes.
the pistol range.
And Gary walks and goes, "Oh no, that's the pistol range. You're doing some tactical
Tactical drill. Yeah, tactical shooting drills.
I'm like, oh great. And then somebody got on the rifle range, and then the
Shotguns.
It was
it sounded like opening day of Michigan firearm deer season on public land.
yes, very much so.
That's
Very
exactly what
much
it
so.
sounded like.
A couple of guys yelling pull and bang.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
No, I had a blast. Thanks and hats off to the guys and gals down there at Adams Conservation Club. You know, if you're looking for a place, you know, go out there, check it out. You know, it's those guys have got it going on. So, you know, and it was cool to see, you know, the trophies being handed out. You know, and the kids, some of those kids that were shooting, it was their first tournament that they'd shot. You know, getting their not trophies, medals, getting their medals.
They handed out medals
Yeah.
to from over 70 all the way down to, I think they called them cadets or
Right.
cubs.
Yep.
One of the two, I think. And just to see their smile on the face of those kids getting their medals, it was cool.
You know, and it's good to see young kids getting involved in archery. You know, we've got the National Archery in School program, JOAD program, and if we can give our kids something to do outside like that and have fun and be encouraged and see them, you know, grow up and shoot well. You know, like the young lady that was shooting with us, Sophie. I heard somebody say she had won a national tournament.
Yeah.
So
I heard that too. I think, yeah, somebody mentioned that. I was like, wow, you know, and it was just fun to be out there.
It was.
It was not only were we under fire, but we were under attack, and poor Dan got nailed,
Right.
which we didn't know, but. You know, we were walking down the trail to the next target, and part of a wasp nest had fallen out, and he was the first one to be crossing over that area and promptly got stung.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good time.
Well, you know, this morning, before we even was this morning? No, it was at lunchtime. At lunchtime, Danny actually had the opportunity to try.
No, it was this morning. Before,
this morning?
Yeah, it was this morning.
To try a vintage weapon, and we've talked about this. Actually, we saw it at ATA, but today, actually, both of us got an opportunity to play with this thing.
Yeah, you know, Carbon Express and the Adel.
Right. So I'm.
Notice the arrow is taller than me.
Yeah, the thing was what, 6 foot?
6 feet, I think, is what it is.
So there's Dan Yasa coaching young Danny.
And it was funny because, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, about hurting his side while doing this. So here I am going to go whip this thing.
You had a good throw there, man.
It worked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you know, and then and it was funny because this thing is 6 feet long, and you're chucking this into the air, and it was just it's a fun thing.
It was. See there again. There's Dan talking about how high the thing is. So we clipped audio on this because it'd be a little hard to understand what we're talking about here and hearing all that in the background. Because I really don't remember what all we were talking about.
Right. But not only did I do it, you did it as well.
Yeah. So here's my go at it. A little apprehensive.
The man,
like, okay,
the myth,
where we
the
gotta do
legend
this
they
thing
call
again?
Mike
So,
Adams.
right?
I take this big running start and then I just I kind of stop.
You did stop. You should have followed.
Well,
through
what do you
with it.
think?
Yeah, I didn't follow. I was afraid I was going to throw the handle.
Well, that's what he
on the
said. He
field.
goes, hold the handle.
Yeah. So, I give it one more whirl here, but that was the biggest thing. Is like
The man, the myth,
he's
the
got
legend they
camera
call
rolling. I'm going to make an
Mike
idiot out
Adams.
of myself here. But yeah, there it goes, and away we go.
And then one of the guys, I think.
Well, what do you think?
One of them did it, and he put it out into that skeet field. He whipped it out there, and it went flying.
So,
But because of the angle, it stood up, and you could see the fletching.
right, yeah, and that thing hits and sticks straight in there. 6 foot, it's not too hard to find it. So,
Right.
but that was the weekend we had down at Adams Conservation Club.
Yeah. So we had a good time.
Shooting FITA field.
Yep, shooting with Dana is always a good time. Getting, taking away his little tidbits that he gives you,
Absolutely.
whether it be how to
Form, technique, the technology.
Okay, so where
how things
else?
work.
How to look at a target and figure out how many barcodes you can put in
The bullseye.
the bullseye to figure out
bullseye.
what size of the target is.
Right, because that matters. The size of target matters.
Yes.
Of the distances. So
So it was good. It was a blast.
always fun. So, anything else this week?
Nope. Go back to work tomorrow.
Right. So, guys, gals, get your Hunter's Blend coffee. These guys are, they're giving back to the outdoors.
They're giving back to the outdoors,
And-
and they're helping, from top all the way down to the
To people grow it.
to the people that grow it. So, hats off to Hunter's Blend, and I'm sure we'll be talking with more of them in the future.
Yeah, if you email them, tell them that you heard about it from the guys from Up North Journal. Just let them know that you heard them on the show. So, but that's all I've got for this week.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's have a good week. I think it's going to get hot again, so that ought to be entertaining.
Yeah. You got any big plans for the upcoming
No,
weekend?
not yet. Let's get to Monday first.
I might check trail cams this weekend. That's the plan so far. So we'll see.
I got to recover from this past weekend.
All right. Hey, listen, guys and gals out there, thanks again. If you would, share the link to the show if you don't mind. Podcast will be out Monday. The rebroadcast of this will be on YouTube on Wednesday. So we'll be back again next week. Y'all take care.